Hey guys, so over the past few years, I've uploaded quite a few videos where I analyze the biology, history, culture, technology, etc. of various alien species introduced in Star Trek Voyager. My presentation has of course changed over time, but nevertheless, I thought some of you might enjoy a supercut version of those videos. So without further ado, let's get started. Hey guys, Tyler here. So, Star Trek has never been a stranger to aliens secretly visiting Earth before humans achieved faster-than-light travel. There's Kukulkan from the animated series episode How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth, the Sky Spirits from Voyager's Tattoo, even the Vulcans in Enterprise's Carbon Creek. But another Voyager episode, Distant Origin, flips this trope on its head, instead depicting an ancient reptilian race that evolved on Earth long before humans, the Voth. Descended from members of the Hadrosaur family, these dinosaur people survived the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event 66 million years ago, and went on to develop advanced technologies, including spaceflight. They eventually ended up in the Delta Quadrant and forgot about their true origins as the eons went by and they continued to evolve. But by the 24th century, the idea that the Voth originated on Earth re-emerged in their society. It seems ridiculous that another intelligent civilization could have predated us on our own planet, but could such a hypothesis be backed up with paleontological and geological evidence? Let's find out. First things first, let's establish some basic facts about Voth biology, history, and culture. Regarding their outward appearance, Voth are slightly taller than humans and have 3 clawed digits on each hand. Their eyes are protected by bony brow ridges, which have a crest that rises to a conical protrusion at the back of their heads. Their pigmentation varies from green to brownish orange, and these pigments can change with mood. Internally, cranial capacity of a Voth is 22% larger than humans on average, and a long tongue allows them to feed on airborne insects. Voth are cold-blooded, and they can enter hibernation to protect themselves from harm. They even have a superior sense of smell and can fire spikes from their lower arm that have a paralytic effect. Their language is also rather click-like. Most importantly, however, they have 47 genetic markers that are identical to humans and many other Terran creatures. Despite the genetic evidence pointing towards a distant origin of the Voth, their recorded history only goes back 20 million years. At this point, they already considered themselves indigenous to the Delta Quadrant and believed that they were the first civilization to evolve in their region of space. There was no longer any archaeological evidence linking them to Earth, and for millennia, their scientific and cultural progress stagnated. An ancient doctrine, which formed the basis of Voth societal structure, predicted that advanced technologies like transwarp would cause their civilization to unravel. Eventually, we don't know when, somebody took a chance and the Voth entered a new era of exploration. The Voth Ministry of Elders, however, still viewed distant origin as a threat to the well-established doctrine and fought acceptance of the new theory. They even charged scientist Fora Gagin with heresy in a clear parallel to the Catholic Church's treatment of Galileo Galilei when he said that the Earth orbits the sun and not the other way around. While the crew of the USS Voyager would serve as the most compelling evidence in favor of Gagin's theory, Gagin was ultimately forced to reluctantly retract his claims to avoid imprisonment of both him and the Voyager crew. The prospect that the Voth were descended from refugees who escaped Earth's Cretaceous extinction absolutely horrified some of the elders. But the question for us remains, does distant origin jive with some of our best scientific findings? In other words, could an intelligent civilization descended from the non-avian dinosaurs have evolved on Earth before humans and survived the Cretaceous extinction? Okay. Let's take a breather for a minute. This entire line of questioning is entirely speculative. To our best knowledge, there is absolutely no evidence, geological or archaeological or otherwise, to suggest that we aren't the first intelligent species, or industrial civilization at least, to arise on this planet. But what if I told you that some very serious scientists have put forward a hypothesis, actually really more of a thought experiment, about how we could uncover evidence of people who lived before humans?
He's right, you know.
In 2018, astrophysicist Adam Frank, who I've talked about before on this channel, teamed up with NASA Goddard Institute director Gavin Schmidt to publish a paper in the International Journal of Astrobiology called The Silurian Hypothesis. The paper pondered whether it would be possible to detect an industrial civilization in the fossil record, a record that is woefully incomplete because it's difficult for really anything to fossilize. In any case, the definition that Frank and Schmidt used for an industrial civilization was one that could harness external energy sources on a global scale. They named this hypothetical civilization the Silurians after the fictitious reptilian species from Doctor Who also evolved on Earth in the ancient past. Wait, the Silurians first appeared on Doctor Who in 1970 and Distant Origin aired in 1997. Huh. Anyway, Frank and Schmidt speculated that the best way to find evidence of such a civilization was to imagine how we might be found by far future archaeologists. What they would spot, it's believed, are aberrations in the geologic record. Aberrations like plastic polymers, rare earth metals, fertilizers, and radioactive elements that don't exist outside laboratories. But that's not the whole picture. What they'd also find is fossil fuel residue. In other words, carbon. By looking at carbon levels in specific rock layers all around the Earth, that could signal widespread use of fossil fuels. And a hypothetical far future archaeologist would be able to tell that this fossil fuel residue was not in fact from, say, volcanic eruptions. This is because the stable carbon isotope C13 and the radioactive isotope C14 are depleted in plants that absorb them compared to atmospheric CO2. And fossil fuels that return carbon to the atmosphere are primarily made up of such plant material deposited millions of years ago. This change in the ratio of atmospheric carbon isotopes as a result of burning fossil fuels is known as the Seuss effect, not Dr. Seuss. Now, this is all well and good, but is there anything in our current geological record to suggest that this has happened before? Well, perhaps. You see, about 56 million years ago, there was a period called the Paleocene-Eocene Thermal Maximum, or PETM, during which Earth's average temperature rose by about 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. There was hardly any ice on Earth's surface, which has kicked off speculation that an industrial civilization might have arisen during this period. One of the only problems with this, however, is that this CO2-driven temperature rise occurred gradually over hundreds of thousands of years, whereas we have raised Earth's temperature by 1 degree Celsius in the past 250 years. Not that this has stopped some people from wrongly asserting that humans don't impact the climate. Now, to be clear, Frank and Schmidt do not actually believe that an industrial civilization existed on Earth 56 million years ago, or really any other time before humans. Again, it's a thought experiment. But the purpose of their thought experiment is to provide insight on what we could look for on other planets, as well as, to paraphrase another Star Trek episode, what we will leave behind. Regarding Voth evolution, it's also prudent to point out that there's absolutely no guarantee that an intelligent creature descended from a hadrosaur would assume a familiar humanoid posture. It's believed that any large-brained intelligent dinosaur would likely retain a standard ornithoid body plan, including a horizontal posture and a tail serving as a counterweight, and manipulate objects with its snout and forelimbs as opposed to human-like hands. Of course, that's by real-life standards. We know in Star Trek that 4.5 billion years ago, an ancient civilization called the progenitors seeded their genetic code on several M-class planets throughout the galaxy, possibly the universe at large. So the Voth would have been presumably subject to the same guided evolutionary pressures, even though that's not how natural selection works.
If the hadrosaur had continued to evolve over the last 65 million years, extrapolate the most probable appearance.
Extrapolation complete.
wrong.
No way. We got you.
Not a chance. We made this one up. It's fiction.
Their cold-blooded nature is also probably an error in scripting research, since it's been widely known since the 1970s that most non-avian dinosaurs were, in fact, warm-blooded. As for whether I think they could fit into Earth's geological record, well, it's kind of hard to say. In the very long, convoluted history of complex life on our planet over 600 million years, it's at least theoretically possible that an ancient civilization could have reached the hunter-gatherer stage, or even the early agricultural stage. Regardless, any structures that they created, even with advanced metals, would have completely disintegrated by now. It's unclear whether the Voth industrialized in the way that we understand it, or how far their civilization really advanced, especially if they were threatened with extinction. Perhaps their civilization became ecologically sustainable before they could leave lots of fossil fuel residue in the geologic record. Alternatively, as I've suggested before, the Preservers, another ancient spacefaring race that transported members of various Native American tribes to the planet Amerind, as seen in the original series episode, The Paradise Syndrome, could have transplanted primitive Voth, still in hadrosaurid form, to the Delta Quadrant. After all, only 46 million years or so after the Cretaceous extinction would their recorded history have even begun. I couldn't finish this video, of course, without talking about Voth technology. Despite their seemingly antiquated, dogmatic worldview, the Voth are, in fact, one of the most technologically advanced races in the Delta Quadrant. Given that they've been around for millions of years, they've crossed several thresholds that the Federation has struggled to master, including transwarp propulsion. And an even more advanced technology is spatial displacement, which allows a starship or even individuals to effectively teleport light years in an instant by moving slightly out of phase with the normal space-time continuum. This technology also has the effect of acting as a very powerful cloaking device. Voth are able to scan multiple sectors of space with incredible accuracy, even down to individual lifeform readings. They can hack and even take control of a ship's computer and disrupt power systems, with their dampening fields able to render tricorders, phasers, and communicators useless. All of these technologies are showcased in the form of the Voth City ship, a vessel of colossal proportions that can beam as much as 700,000 metric tons into a vast internal chamber, big enough to house multiple starships. Between all these facts, it's understandable why the Voth are something of a fan favorite, and naturally, a frequent request for me to cover on this channel. I've wanted to talk about the Voth ever since I started making videos about alien species. Hopefully today's video has shed some light on what the Distant Origin writers might have been thinking when they created the Voth. I also hope I demonstrated that while we have, again, no evidence to support such a frankly outrageous hypothesis, there's still some serious academic research on how we could geologically identify intelligent civilizations in Earth's past, or even among the stars. When it comes to alien species in Star Trek, most tend to take on a familiar humanoid form. Sure, they may be differentiated with forehead ridges or nose makeup, maybe even pointed ears or blue skin, but for the most part, they look a lot like us. There have been some attempts at portraying non-humanoid aliens throughout the franchise, including notably the Horta, the Tholians, the Sheliak, and many, many more. But one of the most unique alien designs in Star Trek appears in the spin-off series Voyager. Given the Borg designation Species 8472, these aliens' real name is never revealed on screen. In the game Star Trek Online, however, we learn that they are called the Undine, another name for water nymphs such as mermaids, which in-universe translates to groundskeepers, a tripedal race that inhabits an extra-dimensional realm called fluidic space, hence the association with water elementals. The Undine serve as one of the greatest threats to galactic stability. Even the Borg fear their true power. That's right, the Borg. In this video, I'd like to examine the biology, history, culture, and technology of the Undine and attempt to answer the question, how could something like this evolve? Let's find out. First things first, I just want to clarify, for the sake of brevity, I will be using species 8472 and Undine interchangeably throughout this video. With that out of the way, let's establish what sets the species apart in terms of their physiology. And believe me, there's a lot. Undines stand about 3 meters tall, making them one of the tallest intelligent species the Federation has encountered. As I mentioned earlier, they have 3 tripod-oriented legs, which arguably makes their locomotion more stable than us lowly bipeds, who often lose our balance. Their pupils are also cruciform, which could help them filter incoming light more efficiently, much like Earth animals whose pupils contract horizontally. They do not appear to require oxygen or any atmosphere to survive, and they can walk without the aid of gravity, able to cling onto surfaces. Undine also do not have discernible mouths, ears, or nostrils. In their native form, they are only known to communicate telepathically, though they can produce some rudimentary shrieks, hisses, and growls. They can initiate mental contact with other telepathic species, though the recipients can find such experiences overwhelming. Oh, and just like the Jem'Hadar, Undine do not require sleep. As far as their internal chemistry, each of their cells contains over 100 times the DNA of a human cell. Their DNA has a triple helix structure, get it? Because it's 3 instead of 2, that, as of 2374, is the most densely coated of any life form known to Federation science. The species may also have as many as 5 sexes. Undine also possess an incredibly powerful immune system, capable of immediately destroying almost any foreign agent, thus rendering them immune, for example, to Borg assimilation. Their bodies generate a bioelectric field that can penetrate force fields and withstand otherwise lethal quantities of weapons fire. Starting to sound a little OP, they are also capable of regenerating themselves from the brink of death. And it's at this point that my script editor Subraxis wanted me to also put that they might as well be shitting diamonds and pissing gold. The Undine also have genetic engineering techniques that rely on isogenic injections, which can be revealed through a microcellular scan. While in these mimicked forms, Undine are effectively a member of the target species, and are subject to all of said species' biological requirements and limitations. It's this genetic engineering technology that honestly makes them almost as powerful as the changelings when it comes to posing as members of other species, though the changelings' shapeshifting being a fundamental part of their biology arguably makes them superior in this regard. That said, given everything we've just gone through, it's easy to understand why the Borg would call species 8472 the apex of biological evolution. Species 8472 considers anything but themselves to be impure and weak, and importantly, a threat to their existence. If species 8472 is so perfect, though, they must have genetically engineered themselves to fit into their native environment, right? The reason I ask is because when Voyager enters the Undine's native realm of fluidic space, effectively a pocket dimension with different space-time properties than the normal universe, the ship's sensors detect no stars or planets. So it seems rather improbable that anything could have evolved there. That said, Undine anatomy suggests that fluidic space must have some solid surfaces to walk on. We don't really know much about fluidic space other than
it is green.
It's filled with a strange organic fluid, biomatter, and that it's accessible through interdimensional rifts caused by quantum singularities. Star Trek Online also shows clusters of giant coral-like organic structures in fluidic space, and it's hypothesized that it's impossible to create a warp bubble in fluidic space. 2 members of my audience who've asked me to make a video about fluidic space, well, again, there's just not that much to go on. Or is there? I do think it's interesting that the Undine originate from a space-time realm that has subtly different physical laws, and is more sparsely populated when it comes to familiar celestial bodies. Indeed, regarding the history of our universe, many elements considered essential for life, including carbon and oxygen, were only produced in abundant amounts after an old generation of stars went supernova billions of years ago. Newer metal-rich stars, called population 1 stars, are commonly found in the spiral arms of the Milky Way and similarly structured spiral galaxies. The Sun is one such example of a population 1 star, and it, like many others in its age range of about 5 billion years, was formed from the gas cloud remnants of ancient supernovae that released elements heavier than hydrogen and helium. Data from the Kepler Space Telescope has helped us figure out that while metal-rich stars may be more conducive to hosting gas giants, more metal-poor stars can still have rocky planetary systems as well. By the way, in astronomy, the word metal is used for any element heavier than helium. Anyway, population 2 stars, more common in the bulge near the center of spiral galaxies, have more elements like oxygen and neon relative to iron, which is more common in population 1 stars. Population 2 may have been formed from the remnants of type 2 supernovae, which result from the collapse of stars between 8 and 40 times the mass of our Sun, characterized by a higher ratio of hydrogen in their spectra. Type 1a supernovae, which are a key part of the process of metal enrichment, probably came at a later stage in the universe's development. These supernovae generally involve binary systems consisting of at least one white dwarf, and it's one of these supernovae that likely released ejecta that eventually made it into what would later become our solar system. And population 3 stars are a hypothetical population of stars that may have existed in the very, very early universe. Their existence is inferred from physical cosmology, but they have not been directly observed. It's admittedly a stretch, but if fluidic space is indeed a parallel universe that's younger than our universe, or is perhaps smaller and has a different distribution of matter, that could explain its weird properties, such as low star formation. We're never given any indication that time itself runs differently in fluidic space, but the Undine, being among the only known native species to fluidic space, suggests this realm may have begun at a different date than our Big Bang nearly 14 billion years ago. We do know that very early in our universe's existence, millions of years after the matter produced by the Big Bang started to cool down, the universe's ambient temperature was much higher than it is now, about room temperature, versus the near absolute zero of today. Thus, liquid water may have been rather abundant, and life may have evolved on plentiful rocky worlds, or possibly out in the cosmos itself. This is, of course, entirely hypothetical, speculative, and something for which we have no evidence, since life as we know it needs specific chemicals and conditions to evolve. Given the Undine's radically alternative biochemistry, they would certainly have to have evolved in an environment completely unlike anything we've ever considered possible. And to answer the question of whether they genetically engineered themselves to be better suited for fluidic space, well, we really have no way of proving or disproving that. But we are told several times throughout Voyager that the Undine are in fact native to fluidic space. Given that they are likely the only sapient beings to have evolved in this realm, for the Undine, the concept of other intelligent species was completely alien to them for a long time. This resulted in them being hostile, intolerant, paranoid during their encounters with species from our universe. Despite their extremely xenophobic outlook, some Undine later happened to gain a better appreciation for the experiences and worldviews of humanoid species as a byproduct of assuming their form. This change of heart semi-accidentally occurs after an Undine attempt to gather intel on Starfleet's military capabilities and plans by training themselves for an elaborate invasion of the UFP within one of their Terrasphere facilities, containing high-fidelity holographic recreations of of Starfleet Academy and Starfleet headquarters. Select Undine genetically alter themselves to resemble various Alpha Quadrant species as part of this reconnaissance mission. One such agent, who adopts the identity Valerie Archer, expresses fondness for various works of Federation art, literature, and music. It's this very ability to connect emotionally with the experiences of other cultures that eventually allows Voyager to broker a ceasefire with the Undine, who had initially believed, mistakenly, that a Federation attack was imminent. The two parties even exchanged technology. That said, while some Undine do find elements of adopting the humanoid form pleasant, others find it extremely uncomfortable. As far as Undine technology, we see that they make use of highly advanced organic machinery. Their bioships are made of the same material as themselves, and thus share the same resistance to weapons fire. Again, kind of OP. 8 bioships working in unison with a Dactylus-class vessel could refocus energy into a devastating beam that could field enough firepower to obliterate an entire planet. By now, again, it should certainly be clear why Species 8472's biological and technological capabilities have made even the Borg see them as a threat. Indeed, according to 7 of 9, Species 8472 was the first species to offer the Borg quote-unquote true resistance in the long history of their current incarnation. Upon realizing the Undine's genocidal intentions, as we see in Scorpion, Catherine Janeway allies with the Borg in order to stop the Undine from invading the Delta Quadrant. This is accomplished by using modified Borg nanoprobes to infect the Undine and their bioships, these nanoprobes being their only apparent weakness. Ultimately, however, it's these very modified nanoprobes that are one of the technologies that Voyager trades with the Undine after the ceasefire, in exchange for Undine's secrets, as seen in the episode In the Flesh. It's easy to see why Species 8472 is a fan favorite. They're incredibly unique in their design, and they're an early Star Trek villain portrayed using CGI. That right there is quite revolutionary, given that Voyager was produced in the 90s, when the technology was still relatively youngish. Species 8472 was even featured on the cover of the 4th issue of Lightwave magazine, named after the animation software used to bring them to life. It's also no surprise that the Undine have been featured in numerous apocrypha, playing a prominent role, for example, in Star Trek Online, a tripedal non-humanoid species from another dimension that has reached the so-called apex of biological evolution and mastered genetic engineering technology, is certainly one of the most compelling aliens in Star Trek. The Hirogen are one of the most notorious antagonist species in Star Trek Voyager, a race of tall, nomadic humanoids from the Delta Quadrant. The Hirogen are experienced and aggressive hunters with little compassion or empathy for other intelligent life. Their entire society and culture revolves around the hunt, and Hirogen travel in packs like wolves. Indeed, calling another life form worthy prey is a high compliment. The Hirogen control a vast, ancient relay network, presumably used for communication, that stretches all the way from the Delta Quadrant to the outer stretches of the Alpha Quadrant. In their multiple encounters with the Federation's starship Voyager, we learn quite a bit about the Hirogen's motives and a little bit about their origins. In this video, I'd like to examine the Hirogen's biology, history, and culture, and compare them to our expectations about aliens in real life. Let's get started. The Hirogen are described in various reference materials based on their on-screen appearances as having traits of both mammals and reptiles, much like the Cardassians and Jem'Hadar. This has led some to believe that the Hirogen are byproducts of genetic engineering, which could explain their extreme hardiness and ability to survive in extreme environments for a short time. Hirogen's skin resembles that of a reptile, with a rough pebble-like texture, typically tan or beige in color, and Hirogen also lack body hair. On the other hand, they are endothermic, warm-blooded, and viviparous, bearing live young. Though as I stated in my Gorn video, some Earth lizards and snakes don't lay eggs either. Regardless, Hirogen also stand apart due to their immense physical strength, afforded by their advanced muscular and nervous systems. Their sensory perception is acute, aiding them in their hunting tactics, and their impressive immune system makes them incredibly resilient to sedation. Hirogen use an enzyme to break down the bones and muscle tissue of their prey, believed to be for consumption as food. And Hirogen blood is red in color, meaning it is probably iron-based and uses hemoglobin to transport oxygen. Hirogen tend to surgically remove the skeletal system, internal organs, ligaments, muscles, and tendons of their prey caught in a fair hunt. Unusual relics bring envy from other Hirogen males, and female Hirogen pursue male hunters who possess unique trophies. Prizes are displayed in nets hanging from the walls or ceilings of Hirogen vessels, and skulls are often mounted on a wall display. Most Hirogen vessels travel alone with a skeleton crew, no pun intended. These ships can cover a radius of 1,000 light years in half a decade and visit dozens of star systems per year. Occasionally, however, Hirogen vessels are encountered in groups, or packs if you like, more common if they're hunting more challenging and resilient prey. Hirogen culture requires a hunter to study his prey and understand its abilities and mindset, believing this is essential for preventing the Hirogen from becoming the hunted. Hunters often paint their faces and helmets in a long-standing ritual. Hirogen are also known to display disappointment when a hunt is unchallenging. While Hirogen believe one must never sympathize with his prey, they do believe their prey should never unnecessarily suffer. However, after cultural contamination by Voyager leads Hirogen to begin using holographic prey, they program the holograms to feel pain, fear, and stress, and even to retain knowledge of prior events after their deaths, prompting an unexpected hologram rebellion. So yeah, the Hirogen do tend to bend the rules a bit and relish in cruelty. While ancient Hirogen civilization is widely considered to have possessed great scientific knowledge and advanced technologies, the species' transition to a nomadic existence has caused their cultural development to come to a halt. Nearly all energy is put into increasingly unproductive hunts in increasingly exhausted territories. And like the Jem'Hadar, Hirogen starships are not built for comfort. The Hirogen way of life has remained largely unchanged for over 1,000 years by the 24th century, leading some Hirogen to believe that their species is doomed to extinction because of their stagnation. As we learn in the episode Hunters, the Hirogen relay network, powered by small artificial quantum singularities, much like the engines of contemporary Romulan warbirds, is believed to be 100,000 years old. Voyager first uses it to communicate 60,000 light years with the USS Prometheus in the episode Message in a Bottle, and in Hunters, the Hirogen sabotage Starfleet's attempts to use the relay to communicate back with Voyager. They don't want no one touching their stuff, it seems. It's never been clear if the Hirogen built the network or if they just claimed it for themselves. Indeed, it is considered one of the great archaeological puzzles of the day. The Hirogen claim it's their technology, and the non-canon Star Trek Encyclopedia corroborates this claim, but it's never definitively proven in canon. That said, even though their Borg designation is over 5,000, cue Dragon Ball meme a little bit, the Hirogen may have been spacefaring and evaded Borg assimilation for millennia. They may have even conquered a previous incarnation of the Borg, if the theory about Borg coming in waves has any merit. Regardless, Hirogen civilization would be considered several times older than the oldest evidence for human civilization that we've found thus far. For instance, the Neolithic site Göbekli Tepe, literally Potbelly Hill, found in southeastern Turkey, is dated to between 9500 and 8000 BC, shortly after the beginning of the Holocene epoch following the last ice age. Göbekli Tepe comprises a number of large circular structures supported by massive stone pillars, making them the world's oldest known megaliths. And in a fascinating display of early Neolithic religion and culture, many of the pillars are richly decorated with artwork of animals, clothing, and humans. The point is, this site stretches back an inconceivably large amount of time into our past. But the Hirogen, if they truly have been an FTL-capable civilization for over 100,000 years, a third of our whole species' existence, may have been flourishing as a quadrant-stretching superpower when the Neanderthals were still around. This brings me to the main point I wanted to make in this video. Just like we're never told how long the Hirogen have truly been around, we're never told if they've been hunters the whole time either. Of course, we can make some reasonable inferences. The fact that Hirogen society used to be more socially and technologically advanced means that, like humans, they could have undergone their own agricultural, industrial, and information revolutions. Indeed, on Earth, the first agricultural revolution, circa 10,000 BC, saw major transformations to the human way of life. As has been evidenced by history, the ability to grow one's own food and settle in one place indefinitely have been offset by various adverse effects, particularly disease and warfare. Research has shown that the invention of agriculture has led to a reduction in the quality of our nutrition, with our new diets consisting of less iron and fewer vitamins, among other things. Additionally, the move away from foraging led to a slight reduction in height and life expectancy, both of which did not reach pre-Neolithic levels again until the 20th century. Multiple agricultural revolutions throughout history have, however, allowed for unprecedented population growth. This is especially true of the most recent agricultural revolution from the 1930s to the 1960s, which saw the invention of high-yield wheat and rice. And even thousands of years ago, as historian Jared Diamond points out in his book The World Until Yesterday, the widespread availability of milk and grains allowed mothers to raise multiple children concurrently. Naturally, denser sedentary communities supported accumulation of goods and tools, as well as specialization of labor. But food surpluses also meant that decision-making could be monopolized by a social elite not directly engaged in agriculture, industry, or commerce. The deep social divisions brought on by the invention of agriculture also fell along gender lines, with the centralization of government encouraging social roles to become more restrictive, a process rationalized through the enforcement of religious doctrine. This has led some admittedly pretty radical theorists to surmise that the invention of agriculture is, in a way, the worst mistake humanity has ever made. Now, you're probably thinking right now, who in their right mind could possibly suggest a thing? I mean, for God's sake, if you're a hunter-gatherer, you've got virtually no free time. You got to spend your whole day chasing and running away from wild animals. Except it's actually a huge misconception that hunter-gatherers had or have no free time. Many present-day societies on Earth who never invented agriculture for themselves have plenty of time to sleep, tell stories, make art and music, dance, worship, have sex, of course. It's also believed that the builders of Göbekli Tepe may themselves have been hunter-gatherers, as any evidence that they engaged in farming is far from conclusive. Farm from conclusive. Yeah, that was a good one. Domestication of animals also goes further back than the agricultural revolution, and we mustn't forget that farming is in and of itself simply a mode of food production. Hunter-gatherer societies today, and probably deep in the past, have always had time to do plenty of things besides hunt, and gather, Does this mean that agriculture is evil and we must return to our Paleolithic ways of life? Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, to our knowledge, we've only run one trial of a society that develops digital technology, something that I value deeply as a major evolutionary step for our species. But it does present some interesting implications for how the Hirogen are presented in Voyager. See, I brought it all back around. That's what I do here at Orange River. Support me on Patreon. Once again, we don't know if the Hirogen completely bypassed a transition to agriculture and developed advanced technology with a more slowly growing population. Probably not. Being a nomad is kind of tough on a society's development, and the centralization of authority and innovation still appear to be key steps in the development of a technological civilization. Plus, if their way of life has remained largely unchanged for 1,000 years and their technology has stagnated, that probably means that the hunt is a relatively recent invention, at least on historical timescales. The Hirogen may then be a post-agricultural society, if such a thing could exist. Is this something that humans will have to face the prospect of becoming ourselves? Well, hopefully not, in my opinion. Even though agriculture has led to a reduction in the nutritional value of our foods, enabled the faster spread of disease, exacerbated social division, and put a strain on our planet's ecology, we are on our way to ameliorating all of these problems. Okay, well, not all. There will always be new diseases that crop up, but medicine will continue to improve. We know we're capable of minimizing gender and social inequality if we try, and in the past decade, we've taken some steps, not enough steps, but some steps to actually address climate change, while still improving our food production techniques. It won't be a smooth transition to reach a healthier, greener, and more equitable society, but Star Trek itself proves that we can at least imagine it. Just like with DS9, I'll start with some species native to local space in the Alpha and Beta quadrants before moving into the Delta quadrant, where Voyager spends 7 years exploring strange new worlds full of people with prosthetic appliances. Once again, just as a reminder, I'm only going to talk about extant intelligent alien species introduced on screen in Voyager. And I won't talk about aliens fitting this description that I've already covered on this channel, specifically the Voth, Hirogen, and Species 8472. The Dollywalkins largely resemble humans in appearance, except for a row of ridges running down the center of their foreheads, as well as pronounced skin above their eyebrows. And one of the several Milky Way species, called the Turellians, this Federation member species has even more pronounced ridges that zigzag across their faces. Oh, yeah, that's it. The show mostly takes place in the Delta Quadrant, so that's going to be like 90% of this video. The junkyard owner Abaddon from Alice sports a white complexion with brown keratin-like structures on his face. The fascist Acriterians, as seen in The Shoot, have slight ridging on their forehead. Their homeworld of Acriteri orbits a pair of K-type stars, which would explain the brown vegetation on their planet. The reptilian Ankari, introduced in Equinox, use a unique form of propulsion and have the power to summon nucleogenic life forms from beyond our dimension, capable of storing a great deal of energy that can be used to drastically augment warp propulsion systems. The Inari, as seen in Nightingale, have green or greenish-brown skin and bony facial structures. They rule the Inari Empire and have been at war with the Kraylor, humanoids distinguished by gill-like structures extending from their ears down their jaw ridges, whose homeworld orbits an F-type star. The Antarians host the Transstellar Rally as featured in Drive, and hail from a homeworld orbiting a G-type star. Auguras species from Resistance are distinguished from humans by a small bone structure on the bridge of their noses. Their homeworld, governed by an oppressive regime, orbits a binary consisting of an F and G-type star whose combined stellar energy could produce great biodiversity. The Bomar have spotted skin and ridged structures extending down the center of their faces. Controlling the Bomar sovereignty, they reluctantly let Voyager pass through their space in The Raven. The Baneth are a xenophobic and reclusive tentacled species seen in riddles, whose homeworld is said to orbit a binary consisting of an A and K-type star, increased radiation from which would normally be damaging to DNA, but is somewhat more plausible with such a non-humanoid species. The friendly Banians, from X post facto, have distinctive forehead ridges and feather-like structures on their face, and their homeworld orbits a pair of F-type stars. They once shared a planet with the Bania, who are shown to have very prominent segmented bony facial structures and browner skin. The Benkarans, introduced in Repentance, have slightly wider skulls than humans and distinctive bone structures around their eyes. They are considered to be predisposed to criminal behavior by the Nigeans, who also have a distinctive ridge that extends from the tops of their foreheads down to their necks. The Botha, as seen in Persistence of Vision, are reclusive telepathic humanoids with wrinkled white skin. The Bernari are humanoids with distinctive nasal ridges who are persecuted by the Devore because of their psionic abilities, as seen in Counterpoint. The Brunali have even larger cranial ridges raised from their noses to the tops of their foreheads. Once an advanced civilization, they have been forced back to an agrarian state by frequent Borg attacks on their homeworld, which orbits a large M-type star. This would suggest that Brunal may have once orbited a primary very similar in composition to our sun. The Katati are polytheistic humanoids who have been devastated by the Borg, some of which have even reached the Alpha Quadrant. The Chokuzan, as seen in Q2, are humanoids with very pronounced facial ridges and tanned skin. The cytoplasmic life forms, which operate technology through biochemical secretions and have a language consisting of high-pitched shrieks, are seen in Nothing Human. Dallas species from Live Fast and Prosper, in which con artist members of the species impersonate the Voyager crew, are distinguished by a bifurcating cartilaginous ridge running vertically down their foreheads and stopping at the nose. Denali, featured in Critical Care, are outwardly indistinguishable from humans, but have different internal physiology and kidnap the Doctor to aid them as they are experiencing ecological disasters. The distortion ring from Twisted is a spatial anomaly that can alter the shape of spacetime itself, its sentience discovered by Janeway after the lifeform copies Voyager's entire database. The Dralians, also seen in Critical Care, have cranial ridges from their noses over their foreheads and also patterned skin. The Drayans from Innocence are outwardly human-looking, save for a triangular scaly patch on their foreheads. Their aging process is also very unusual, completely reversing towards the end of their life until their elderly resemble children. At this point, they feel a powerful instinct to travel to a cave on one of their homeworld's outermost moons, where they go to die. Their homeworld of Drayan 2 is said to orbit an F-type star. The so-called dream aliens from Waking Moments are telepathic humanoids with orange or white skin, sharp ridges on their foreheads and necks, as well as a horn that sprouts from their chin. They exist on their homeworld in a perpetually unconscious state, with Chakotay wondering aloud how they could have evolved this way. Their planet is also very gaseous and said to orbit in a trinary system of M-type stars, which could potentially point to it being tidally locked. The Inarans, as seen in Remember, are telepathic humanoids with red spotting around their eyes and forehead, as well as small overlapping plates covered by hair. Their society, hailing from a homeworld orbiting an F-type star, has a long history of discrimination against those who reject modern technology. The Antharans, seen in retrospect, are distinguished by a complex midline structure above their noses, and they are very dependent on trade with other species. The Atanians are aggressive and expansionist aliens featured in Rise, whose appearance is distinguished by a number of ridges extending from the center of their faces. Phantom species, seen in The Void, are a nomadic people with flat noses, green skin, and slight forehead ridges. They do not communicate verbally, but are very intelligent, fast learners, and can survive in oxygen-free environments for some time. They also have higher lung capacity and voracious appetites, likely a response to their resource-scarce lifestyle. The Garen are humanoids with greenish skin and tough cranial structures who request medical assistance from Voyager and Macrocosm. The Hakonians are tall, pale-skinned humanoids with swirled facial structures who conquered Neelix's homeworld of Talax, as discussed in Jetrel. The Hanonians, tribal humanoids on the verge of civilization, possess similar raised ridges on their foreheads, cheeks, and chins, but have yellow skin. Their homeworld, Hanon 4, where the Voyager crew is stranded by the Kazon and Basics, orbits an F-type and M-type binary. The Hazari, bounty hunters seen in Think Tank, have significant bony structures on their heads and pale mottled skin. Their homeworld is said to orbit a K-type star, consistent with their paler complexion. The Alari are authoritarian humanoids seen in Warlord, with tube-like ridges above their nose. The Imhotep are also participants in the Antarian Transstellar Rally, and their makeup reuses elements from the Benzites, a major difference being their browner skin. And so far, the lack of evidence that they possess a vape god. Members of the Jai species are employed by the Denali as administrators, and their homeworld is a quaternary system consisting of a trio of K-type stars and an M-type companion. The Kadi are very religious humanoids with bulbous forehead structures, as seen in Someone to Watch Over Me. The Kassat are humanoids with distinctive rippled brow ridges and spot patterns above their temples and on their necks. Voyager cooperates with their government after being attacked by the Bineth. The Kobali are humanoids with grayish-white skin, as well as flat ears and a mottled purple pattern on their hairless heads. Their most distinctive trait is that they reproduce by reanimating the corpses of other species, altering their DNA and transforming them into fellow Kobali. This happens to Ensign Lindsay Ballard, as detailed in Ashes to Ashes, as she is killed on an away mission and recovered by the Kobali. The Kraden, seen in Nemesis, are large humanoids with muscular ridges around their faces and teeth on all sides of their mouths. They were engaged in a war with the human-like agricultural Vori, who accused them of committing a variety of atrocities, though there is no independent evidence of the Kraden's vicious nature, and in fact the Vori are shown to capture and indoctrinate individuals to possess a racist drive to kill Kraden. The Kyrians, humanoids with small ridges above their noses, share a homeworld with the Vaskins, who have more pronounced facial structures. The two species fight a war with each other that still leaves scars into the 31st century, when a copy of the Doctor helps bring a new peace to their society. Their planet is said to orbit an A-type star, meaning the two species might not be native to the system. The Ladosians are peaceful humanoids with a V-shaped ridge extending from their noses to their hairlines. Their homeworld Lidos orbits a trinary system consisting of an F-type, M-type, and K-type star. A genetic offshoot called the Ventu are hunter-gatherers, who the Ladosians considered to be their evolutionary precursors, much like how Homo sapiens once coexisted with several other intelligent hominid species until we it killed them off. Sorry, my lawyer has told me I need to add in addition to other naturalistic factors. Lidos was also once visited by species 312, which erected a protective energy barrier over the Ventu's territory, and the Star Trek Encyclopedia posits that species 312 might have been the preservers. The Lokirim, introduced in Body and Soul, are known for fighting an ongoing war against insurgent holograms. The Lokirim are distinguished by a small U-shaped ridge above their noses. Makul's species are pre-warp humanoids seen in Time and Again, where Janeway creates a new timeline that prevents an explosion that fractures their planet and leads to the species' extinction. Their homeworld is said to orbit an M-type star, though there's no evidence the planet is tidally locked. The Malon have yellowish-brown skin and broad noses with distinctively shaped nostrils. Their foreheads also have slight ridge-like protrusions, and they have brown hair. The Malon are known for producing large quantities of hazardous antimatter waste that they must export. Though they attempt to find uninhabited regions for this waste, sometimes it is dumped in inhabited space, and the waste export industry has a profit motive to resist efforts to develop cleaner technologies. Members of Morena's species, seen in Alter Ego, in which Morena hacks Voyager's holodeck, have black spots on their foreheads, noses, and chins. The Mari are human-like telepathic aliens seen in Random Thoughts, whose society harshly punishes thought crime. Their homeworld is said to orbit a binary pair of A-type stars, meaning the Mari might not be native to the system. The Mikal Travelers are a loosely governed race of explorers seen in Darkling, distinguished by faint nose ridges. The Mislanites, seen in The Swarm, are distinguished by pale skin and pronounced bony structures on their heads. The Monians, introduced in 30 days are a formerly nomadic people who settled on an artificial planetoid they call the Waters. Salamander-like in appearance, they have distinctive nostril shapes and a pattern of brown spots on their noses, foreheads, and around their eyes. Mylians inhabit a region of space near Talax, and while they are not known to share a common ancestry, the two species occasionally interbreed. Based on a mutation experienced by Neelix in scientific method, Mylians might have brown spots all over their bodies, which could serve any number of purposes. They also have no taste buds and are intolerant of bright light due to their dilated pupils, which suggests they may have evolved on a world orbiting a dimmer star than our sun. The Nasari are blue-skinned humanoids with prominent facial structures who attack, without warning, any ship carrying a Teresian. Teresians reproduce by infecting males of other species with a retrovirus that mutates them into Teresians. They attempt to inflict— hey, that's just like that other episode. They attempt to inflict this process on Harry Kim and Favorite's son when he is abducted to their homeworld, which orbits a K-type primary with a G-type companion. Another victim is Taemon, and I kid you not, I had to restart that sentence multiple times because I kept wanting to say Tavon, whose species is distinguished by red spots on their faces. The Teresians themselves are distinguished with a spotted pattern on their heads and necks. The Nachani are ritualistic humanoids with minor ridges on their noses who help Janeway treat Kess when she falls ill on their planet in Sacred Ground. The Nachani homeworld orbits a binary system consisting of a K-type star and an A-type companion, meaning the Nachani might not be native to this system, although the planet orbiting a K-type star is consistent with the browner vegetation seen on the planet's surface in the episode. The Nazu are humanoids with ridges running down the centers of their faces and small horns protruding above their eyes. They are encountered by Voyager and Rise when the Atanians attack a Nazu colony with asteroid strikes. These so-called night aliens are humanoids native to the Void who claim to have inhabited it undisturbed for millions of years. They are distinguished by their hairless brown skin with several folds and black growths, and they are incredibly photosensitive. It's likely, in my view, that they evolved around a star relatively similar to our sun, if not brighter, given they aren't actually pale as one would expect after such a long time in a dark environment, meaning their skin pigmentation evidently aids in camouflage. The Norcadians, distinguished by a protruding nasal ridge, invented the popular sport Tsunkatse as seen in the episode of the same name, featuring The Rock as a Pandari athlete, distinguished by a series of forehead ridges. Their homeworld of Norcadia Prime orbits an A-type star, meaning they may not be native to the system, perhaps corroborated by their somewhat low Borg designation of Species 689. Other possible members of the species also have spherical bony ridges on their faces. The Nubari are humanoids with a distinctive skull shape who employ primitive holograms as laborers, as seen in Flesh and Blood. The Nerians are human-like aliens who, in Displaced, are shown to gradually replace the populations of foreign vessels, space stations, and colonies, and place prisoners in a simulation of their native habitat as an alternative to warfare. They prefer a darker, warmer, less humid environment, suggesting they may have evolved on a world orbiting a dimmer star than our sun that nonetheless orbits close enough or has a thick enough atmosphere to generate warmer temperatures, closer to the infrared range of the electromagnetic spectrum. The Ocampa, of course, are telepathic aliens introduced in the form of Kess in Caretaker. Generally, well, actually, I guess there are other Ocampa there too. Generally human-like in appearance, save for ears with unique skin folds, the Ocampa are known for aging rapidly, reaching adulthood by the age of 1, and having average lifespans of only 8 or 9 years. An interesting biological trait bogged down in many viewers' eyes by Kess's romantic relationship with Neelix. Man, they really just wrote that in the year of our Lord 1995, didn't they? Otrin species, humanoids with distinctive forehead ridges, inhabit a planet named Uxal, according to Star Trek star charts, that was encountered by United Earth's Friendship 1 probe, with disastrous consequences. The Overlookers are humanoids with dull brown, leathery skin, as well as lumpy and hairless heads and small ears. Members of the species seen in the show have a rotund appearance, and their government is called the Hierarchy. They regularly surveil passing ships to plan raids. And I think that their design is just so funny. I love these aliens. Photonic life forms from a transdimensional realm, unaware of the existence of carbon-based life, encounter Voyager's holodeck in Bride of Chaotica. Robots constructed by the Prelor, which overthrew their creators, recruit B'Elanna Torres to construct more of their kind and prototype. The Prelor homeworld is said to orbit a trinary system consisting of a G, M, and K-type star. The Komar are xenophobic humanoids with a ridged protrusion above their noses. They are shorter than the average human, and I have to say, I also resisted the urge to say shorter than the average bear, suggesting a slightly higher surface gravity on their homeworld, and despite being very mathematical, their society lacks music. This leads the Doctor to become an icon on the planet after introducing music in Virtuoso. The Quarren, as opposed to the Quarians, are an advanced species, human-like in appearance, save for a protrusion on their chin, who employ a multi-species workforce as seen in, workforce. The Rakosans are humanoids, distinguished by prominent cranial structures and brownish skin, whose homeworld Rakosa 5 accidentally falls in the path of a self-guided Cardassian missile in Dreadnought. The Romurans are human-like aliens, save for uniquely shaped ears, who possess a closed society as seen in Unforgettable. The Sakari are vaguely human-like aliens inhabiting a planet in the Necrid Expanse, whose civilization was decimated by the Borg, as revealed in Blood Fever. The Sarosians, seen in Revulsion, also appear human-like and utilize holograms for labor. Their homeworld, Saros, as opposed to Pharos. I'm sorry, I really do just get on these videos and I just keep talking about Mass Effect, is said to orbit a trinary system consisting of an M-type primary with G and K-type companions. The Chevolians are Saurian humanoids featured in Survival Instinct, who also have a low Borg designation number, 521. The Sicarians are human-like aliens with a remarkably pleasure-oriented society who develop spatial trajector technology, as seen in Prime Factors. Their homeworld, Sikaris, is said to orbit a binary system consisting of two K-type stars, though the episode depicts Sikaris as orbiting a single star, meaning the second one could be a distant companion if the designation is not an error. The Silverblood is a biomimetic life form native to a Class Y planet orbiting an M-type star. In its natural state, the Silverblood appears as metallic liquid and has the ability to change itself into matter it comes into contact with, be it biological or technological. First introduced in Demon, it goes on to copy the entire Voyager crew and eventually leaves the planet, this crew forgetting their true origins in one of the most chilling and awesome episodes of Voyager, Course Oblivion. The Sky Spirits, so named by a Native American tribe, were ancient astronauts who still reside on a planet in the Delta Quadrant orbiting an F and G-type binary star. They are distinguished by a series of forehead ridges and can impart genetic memories through touch. The Sky Spirits, as revealed in Tattoo, visited Earth some 43,000 years ago and are said to have genetically influenced early humans. Something I really wish wasn't canon because, in real life, ancient aliens hypothesis is cringe racist pseudoscience. Species 116 are fast at learning new languages and are very adept at cryptoanalysis. They are distinguished by their bald, earless heads and were mostly wiped out by the Borg as detailed in Hope and Fear. Species 125 is the designation for a vaguely human-like species, a member of which, seen in Dark Frontier, goes on to become the Borg Queen. Species 571, also seen in Survival Instinct, are a religious people distinguished by a bifurcating ridge running vertically down their foreheads, stopping at the upper lip. Species 6339, seen in Infinite Regress, are humanoids with extensive cranial ridges who are perhaps almost entirely assimilated by the Borg in the 2370s. Species 10026 have Brunali-like nasal ridges, whose population is almost entirely assimilated by the Borg as seen in Dark Frontier. The Srivani are humanoids with large skin structures over their ears, as well as mottled, colored patterns along their jaws and temples. Seen in Scientific Method, they are known for finding experimentation on other sentient species an acceptable method of gaining knowledge. The Swarm species, featured in Swarm, are hostile aliens native to a region of the same name who have a very unusual facial structure. The tac are seen in macrocosm, trying to rid infected ships and colonies of the virus, distinguished by forehead ridges and a prominent protrusion extending vertically from the hairline all the way to their chins, even over their mouths. Their homeworld is said to orbit a quaternary system of 4 K-type stars, consistent with the brownish vegetation seen on their planet. The Takarians are a pre-industrial human-like species with Bronze Age technology who, in false prophets, are taken advantage of by 2 Ferengi who crash on their homeworld, Takar, after being stranded in the Delta Quadrant by the unstable Barzan wormhole. The Talaxians, of course, are featured prominently in the form of Neelix throughout the show, though we see other Talaxians as well. They have large areas of yellow to reddish-brown spotting along their foreheads, arms, and bodies. Generally stocky with dense musculature, their homeworld of Talax might possess higher gravity than Earth, as these are traits that would be promoted in a higher gravity environment. Talax is also said to orbit a trinary system consisting of 2 G-type stars and a K-type companion, consistent with the green vegetation seen on Talax's surface. To be honest, guys, I really do not want to spend much longer talking about them because, well, Neelix. The Telsians are humanoids with ridged craniums hailing from Telsius Prime, near the galactic core. Another species named the Turellians reside in a small trinary system near the site of the Antarian Transstellar Rally and have ears very reminiscent of the Halanans. The Trabe frequently feature throughout Voyager's 2nd season as they are depicted as the conquerors of the Kazon. They are distinguished by prominent, wavy facial protuberances above the eyes and nose and hail from a planet orbiting a K-type primary. The Turay, distinguished by grayish skin and extensive bony protuberances, are the keepers of the underspace corridors discovered by the Cobra-like Vadwar in the 15th century, as portrayed in Dragon Age. I'm sorry, Dragon's Teeth, I've got BioWare on the mind. The Vero are authoritarian aliens featured in The Disease, who outwardly resemble humans. They traditionally mate for life, their body chemistries becoming interdependent. This becomes a problem when Harry Kim can't keep it in his pants. The Venori, seen in Emanations, are humanoids with large bony foreheads whose death rituals involve sending people, including lonely or depressed and disabled people, through subspace vacuoles that lead to an asteroid in the Delta Quadrant, where bodies have been piling up for thousands of years. The Venori in the episode are said to be from another dimension or parallel universe, and aliens with their makeup are seen in the Saporus system in Deep Space Nine, meaning their homeworld may be in the Alpha Quadrant. The Vidians, of course, are prominently featured throughout Voyager and are known for suffering from a disease called the phage that eats skin and internal organs, damaging their DNA. Their base appearance is similar to humans except for a swept-back hairline, an enlarged forehead without eyebrows, as well as a faint ridge running from the hairline down the center of their face to the top of their nose. Vior's species operate at the Coal Settlement as seen in The Thaw, having entered into hibernation using an interactive simulation meant to keep their minds active. They are distinguished by a series of forehead bumps. Crew of a Wasanti starship, members of which are distinguished by a midline ridge on their foreheads, adopt 2 former Borg drones of their species in imperfection. And the Zal are a generally non-confrontational species who, in one timeline, defeated the Krenim Imperium as seen in Year of Hell. They are distinguished by a series of bony ridges on their faces, as well as their brownish skin. With that, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below and don't forget to share it. That stuff really helps me out. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that as well so you won't miss future uploads, and click the bell icon to receive all notifications. If you want to support my work even further, you can become a patron at patreon.com/OrangeRiver, link in the description, or become a YouTube member by clicking the join button on my channel page. By becoming a patron or member, you also get access to awesome perks like behind-the-scenes photos and videos, patron and member-only polls, name in the credits, merch discounts, and more. Or you can drop a one-time super thanks or PayPal donation. All are appreciated. Links to my PayPal, as well as my social media and merch store, are in the description too. Also, just as a reminder, I do have a second channel, OrangeRiver Plus, where I've uploaded the VODs of lots of my gaming streams, with more on the way. And in addition to some other goofy one-offs and extra behind-the-scenes content, I've officially made it my second streaming platform, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. That's all I have for this week. Live long and prosper. Do you like merchandise? If so, head on over to the new and improved OrangeRiver merch store. That's right, OrangeRiver is now officially on Spreadshop. I've got a bunch of awesome new designs, including All the Way Down,
All the Way,
Vape God, Tally, aka Best Girl,
it was totally worth it.
and what is perhaps my greatest design yet,
I love being married to my husband.
Plus, I've got some of my classic designs like OrangeRiver Arrowhead, N7, and more. And there are even some new products like OrangeRiver hats. That's right, OrangeRiver hats now exist. Visit the link in the description to get discounts and other special deals on items from my store.